the Iowa House in District 38. I'm running because I believe voters deserve a much more open and honest conversation about some of the challenges and opportunities we have in the state, and because I believe we need to be investing in Iowans again. This legislature, and particularly over the last 8 years, we have seen the continued systematic underfunding of our public schools. Even during the farm crisis in the 80s, that we still raised state supplemental aid by an average of about 3 to 4%. In the last 8 years, it's been anywhere from 0 to 2. Last year alone, it was 1% increase, but the rate of inflation was 2%. So that is effectively a cut. Also, teacher salary is 32nd in the nation and below the national average. The reason why college tuition is going up so much is because the state is refusing to do its part in actually funding public universities. Tuition and fees are up by 37% in the last 10 years for our community colleges. How are we going to get a skilled workforce if people can't afford to go to school? This is a huge thing. Continue to focus on community colleges, Regents universities, making sure that we can get our tuition down so that we can build that skilled workforce and help move Iowa forward. I think that we can all agree that privatized Medicaid has been an utter disaster for providers and for patients alike. I have talked to administrators, I've talked to providers, and I've talked to patients, and most importantly, I've talked to people at their doors. And what I have heard are the horror stories of not getting care, of having to wait for care, things that used to get taken care of without a problem. But this is about quality of life. It's about the dignity of work. And this was something that we really connected on. And I think what's really important to note is that this was a conversation I had with a gentleman at his door who is a diehard Republican. But he gets it. He gets it because he sees what's happening to his own kid, and he sees what's happening to other kids and other people in the state that are suffering. And so I believe very strongly that we need to get away from managed care. I support returning to as much as possible a state-run system. I believe that mental health is one of our greatest human services challenges. It's true across the country, it's true in this state. There is no real mental health parity for people who suffer for any number of different reasons. One of the things that I've really been struck by is how there is no dedicated funding stream, really, for mental health care in this state. It is predominantly paid for by property taxes, which has been alluded to, that go to the regions. But the only time there's any additional funding from the state is when the state chooses to make an appropriation, which could happen some years, other years not so much. And without that dedicated funding stream that has reliability to it and sustainability to it, we are not going to be able to move forward as a state when it comes to taking care of people. So I think that's the first thing that we need to be thinking about is what is that funding stream and how do we create it? And that's going to take a lot of people being willing to have that conversation together because it's not an easy answer. As I've been knocking doors, thousands of doors in this district and having personal conversations, the number one thing that people talk to me about is mental health care and how they are suffering, how their kids are suffering. I talked to one woman who literally 3 days before I was there, her son attempted suicide. Another one of her children had also attempted suicide. She also happened to be living in a trailer where the ceiling was caving in. There is a whole lot happening in this state that we are not paying attention to if it's not happening to us or our neighbor. And we need to get back to basics, and we need to care for the people around us. That is our moral obligation as a state.
I'm very proud of Representative Langdon for running the bill that involved Farm Bureau and Walmart. They each have multiple millions of dollars invested in the plan that offers that alternative, convincing everyone.
But one of the things that I really want to mention has come up already, and it is this Farm Bureau health plan. I'd like to point out that even the Des Moines Register has said, this is not health insurance. They are not actually allowed to call it insurance because it provides no consumer protections. If something happens to you, you are out of luck. So yes, we need lower costs, and we absolutely have to find ways to do that, but we don't do it by going to the lowest common denominator of care for people. We do it by improving care for everybody. Thank you. Healthcare is intensely personal. Healthcare is also really expensive, as we all very well know. I'm not sure if everyone knows this statistic, but the United Way was recently talking about this. 37% of Iowans struggle to make ends meet from week to week, and those are on 4 basic criteria: healthcare, food, housing, and childcare. Almost 40% of Iowans can barely make ends meet, if at all, and healthcare is a huge part of this. Now, I don't know anyone who loves their health insurance or is like, I'm perfectly happy paying the amount that I'm paying for everything. I think one of the things that we need to do in this state is work on a public option. I think the bigger conversation on healthcare and how we provide it and how we pay for it needs to happen at the federal level, because Iowa's economy is not as big as we need it to be to do, everything we might want to do. And I just want to real quick highlight a couple of the things that have concerned me over the last couple of years that have been voted on and passed in this legislature. Gutting collective bargaining, gutting workman's comp, preempting the minimum wage at the local level and reversing increases in wages for 65,000 Iowans, defunding family planning services supported by over 75% of Iowans, passing the most restrictive abortion ban in the country, watching rural providers close under Medicaid privatization, creating healthcare deserts all over the state, the continued systematic underfunding of public education, no real investments in mental health, and the cutting of basic government services with a mismanaged budget and mid-year de-appropriations. I have more, but that's all that fit on the card. So, what I would say, and this is what I tell everybody, if you believe that things can be done differently, and if you think that we need more transparency in state government, then I ask for your support. If you are willing to agree that it's okay that we don't agree on everything, and that maybe you won't be happy with every single vote that I take, but you know that I will always be honest with you about where I stand, and that I am always available to talk and not only listen, but really hear you out and work to find common ground, then I ask for your support. I ask for your vote on November 6th.